Community center. At the end of the cocktail hour.
Hold it.
We're all getting ready to come into the room now.
Jackie, smile.
Crowley. First, Dr. Leon Pierce.
Thank you and good evening. It's really a celebration tonight for John Crowley, but I can't help to take a moment to recognize a celebration in another way, and that's to recognize recently the honor that was bestowed upon Herrick's when an independent writer voted us the second best school system in the United States. When Ira Singer read the award, he said, "Lee," he called me the next day and said, "Lee, what happened? We were first when I left." That's Ira, all gratitude. But I thought it would be appropriate on John's party to recognize that because John played a major part in making Herrick's a special place. And I'll be back a little later talking to some other people who are here, especially board presidents and former trustees who own a piece of the rock. And no one is recognized overnight. Whatever's happened in Herrick's has happened over a period of 20 years because the community and those people who led really cared. I wanted to start the evening by reading the following resolution. This resolution was acted on by the Board of Education at its public meeting on June 16th. The vote was 3-2. Whereas Dr. John Crowley has successfully survived the antics and questionable actions of the Board of Education Presidents George Farber, Vincent LaSala, Sandra Parties, Joy Hirschberg, Yetta Zerwin, and Thomas Malley, and those of trustees Maureen Logren and Barry Masterleone. And whereas Dr. John Crowley has successfully survived the bizarre and varied innovations of superintendents of schools Norman Hawley, Phil Petrosola, Ira Singer, and Leon Pierce, and whereas Dr. John Crowley has successfully endured the practical jokes of Dr. Donald Erger, and whereas Dr. Crowley has outlived several used cars sold to him by Dr. Erger, I hereby bestow upon Dr. Crowley the first and last Herrick's Legion of Medal of Honor. The medal is inscribed, "A special medal for a special man." And if Mr. Goldwasser could come forward. In searching the personnel files, I found this picture of Dr. Crowley when he first came. And I had it enlarged, and I have a pen with me. I'm going to put the pen over on the chair and have you sign it at your leisure tonight. Hopefully there'll be enough around the picture. John Crowley reminded me when I first came here 7 years ago, he said, "You know, Lee, I used to look like you, thin, but this is what happened." And the proof was, John was thin at one time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your warm greeting. I appreciate it. My name is Leon Pierce. I'd like to introduce, I'd like to introduce the supervisor of the town of North Hempstead and a Center Street parent, the Honorable John Kiernan.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. We were contacted. I knew, of course, that Dr. Crowley was retiring, but we were contacted by the Center Street School PTA and asked to participate in this event. And then I was told it was supposed to be a roast, and then I realized that Margaret hadn't gotten her report card yet, so I decided to keep it serious. But seriously, as some of you may know, just within the last year, we sent our daughter to Center Street, and I have to tell you that from the very day back last spring when we were making that decision, Dr. Crowley couldn't have been nicer and warmer, and as with the case of the entire Center Street School family. And I think that it isn't by accident that the Herrick school system consistently, not just one person, but consistently nationwide, year after year, is recognized for the quality of education that it provides to the children of our district. And it's known not only on Long Island, but throughout the state and the country. And that happens because of competent leadership and people that are willing to do more than just their job people that are willing to go the extra mile, so to speak. So we do have a proclamation, and if I could ask Dr. Crowley to come up. We don't have any medals to give out, but we do have a proclamation. And we can't give you a watch, but we can give you a day. And I'm not going to read the entire proclamation, but be it proclaimed that Tuesday, June 21st, 1988, be declared a day of special recognition throughout the town of North Hempstead in honor of Dr. John Crowley. Good luck and God bless.
John Cannon just wanted you to know that he has another dinner at the other side of the room. He really wanted you to know that Margaret did get her report card, so he's leaving. At this point, Nancy and I would like to propose a toast. Excuse me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Leon.
To John.
You don't understand, Nancy. John's leaving, Leon stays. Leon, everyone.
And I did it.
Seriously, though, if you would remain standing for a moment, there is an answer to a question. And the question is, what are the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? And the answer is, what does John Crowley call his sons when he can't remember their names? Well, here now are the 5 Crowley brothers, led by son number 2, Clifford, to toast their dad.
Those are the babies you're talking about?
Just like this, there's Niall, Franklin, Kurt, Jeff, and I'm Cliff. I'd just like to point out that my mom is in a Bob Mackey, my wife is in the Dion von Furstenberg, and we are all in Ergers. But I'd just like to give a brief toast to my dad, because I'm going to throw a couple zingers at him here, but we'd just like to, on a serious note, say that he has given a long service to the schools, and we appreciate everything he's done for us. And just cheers. Hope you enjoy your retirement. Sit down. Congratulations, Dad. As far as I know, there are only 5 of us, Mom. You're not pregnant, are you? When Mr. Goldwasser asked me to come up and say a few words, I said, sure. Speaking in front of a few hundred teachers, my worst nightmare from hell. It's a good chance to get back a little bit. Especially in elementary school. I spent 10 years in elementary school. Wait, I heard there's going to be a roast for my dad. That explains the 2 trucks of charcoal out in the parking lot. I told you it's not going to be a pretty sight here. He can take it home. Well, Dallas, if you've known my father, you've heard of Jennifer. I'm the father of Jennifer. Jennifer couldn't be here tonight. She didn't have $35. And Dad wouldn't take a credit card. But there are some untruths and rumors I wanted to settle. Jennifer is bright, but she was not the leading stockbroker last year at E.S. Hutton. She is pretty, but she was not on the cover of the Sports Illustrated bathing suit issue. But she can dance, so. The only problem is, since Dad got his doctorate, he's referred to as Dr. Granddad. I'd also like to salute Mom because if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be here. Dad would have killed us. He's not such a mild-mannered man, and he did believe in corporal punishment. Until I was in high school, I thought the Board of Education was a 2x4. But Mom was always there to say, "John, not in the head." They would say, "Why?" "He won't pass his SATs." "Not in the fanny." "Why?" "You won't feel it." "Not below the belt." "Why?" "You won't give us any grandchildren." And number 2 is on the way now, so Dad, maybe after the show you give me a couple of shots. But in the end, Dad wasn't so wrong, because nowadays it's the students that beat up the teachers. Unfortunately. But now he's retiring to enjoy his sailing, and drinking beer and watching TV. But even the sailing has caused a few problems. He can take it. The water level in the harbors has changed dramatically. And we all heard the lonesome whales that swim out at sea next to the boats. Well, they're just out there to meet that. They want to hop in and mate. And that poor whale we heard about swimming up the Hudson River last week, Henry the whale. Well, Henry knew exactly where he was going. Short for Henrietta. He was returning from a date with that. He was just too cheap to pay the taxi. Henrietta lives in the Bronx. As I said, he can take it. That's about all I have to say. The problem with being the first hunter is that you don't know who's waiting in the bushes to shoot at you. So I'm sure I'll get this in time. But thanks a lot, Dad, and enjoy.
Somehow, Flicky, humor is very familiar to us. I'm not going to repeat that. Irene Duffett, a former member of the Center Street faculty, is here to recite and to give us one of her very famous poems in honor of John.
John J. Crowley joined our ranks in 1968 when Center Street had slowed its growth and so could concentrate on programs geared to keep our youth forever in the fore in local, state, and national polls of education lore. He was a policeman once and in the Army served a hitch, but education beckoned him, and there he found his niche. As leader of our K through 6, he practiced liberal ways, encouraging the staff and kids to make most of their days. New families were moving in. The need to get along with those of different creeds and faiths placed emphasis upon an understanding of each child, acceptance in the school, friendliness, good sportsmanship, and kindness were the rule. His interest lay with peer on peer. With Mr. Switzer's aid, the Human Resources School and ours a healthy union made. The inter-age developed then. To teach the kids to care, they kept in touch with HRS through visits here and there. Through study, reading, and research, there was a change of name. Our principal earned his degree, and doctor he became. He met with parents, teachers, kids. He kept his door ajar. He always had a quip for joke. His laughter carried far. He liked to kid around and tease those who would understand, but had a gentle, kind approach when occasion did demand. He loved his Sarah and 5 sons, of whom he spoke with pride, and was the doting grandfather when Jennifer arrived. His residence on Lover's Lane in hilly Huntington sure kept him busy doing things that every home needs done. So, facing his retirement, he'll not go home and sit. He plans to do some sailing, teach in college, write a bit, escape the island's winter, and enjoy the Southland's heat in a condo down in Florida that offers a retreat. Have time to be a grandpa and spend hours with his friends, go traveling with Sarah, and the list just never ends. And so, dear Dr. Crowley, and of course, dear Sarah too, the days of your retirement will soon be upon you. I, with many others, wish you years of joy and fun. God bless and keep you healthy in the life that's just begun.
Very kind. The only thing you left out is that I don't think that you knew that the Williston Times contacted John and asked him to become a staff writer. Ever since I came to Herrick's, I've heard a lady tell the story over and over again about how when she was a Center Street parent, I keep thinking I'm going to say Searingtown. When she was a Center Street parent, she would bring her bagels and her lox and Bialys and lock herself and Dr. Crowley behind closed doors in his office. I never really believed her. True or not true? I want to know if you really ate those bagels and Bialys. Just Bialys. This is it. Yeah, this is weird.
Told my punchline in. John Crowley and I walked into this district together 20 years ago. I think I was the first parent that he encountered, and it took him 20 years to get over it, and he's finally done it. When I used to come to him to complain about my son, he used to say to me, "Yetta, what do you want? I got 5 of them." I went and fixed them. I went and had a daughter. But then he fixed me. He went and had a granddaughter. But anyway, the most beautiful memory I have of my children's education is something that John Crowley gave me. And that was when we had the interage with and the exchange with the Human Resources. I went to a picnic there. And our children from Center Street were playing baseball with them. And a Human Resources child was sitting there in a wheelchair. And he batted, someone pitched to him, I don't know the size or whatnot, and a Center Street child ran to this child. And that was the most beautiful thing I ever saw. And I have to thank Chuck Crowley for giving us this memory. I want to be brief. I brought you your Bialys, John. I ask that when you retire, on the first day of your retirement, and you get up on the morning of July 1st or 2nd, we put these in the freezer, don't let them out, that you sit down with Sarah, have some cream cheese, have some lox with them, enjoy. And I thank you on behalf of all the Center Street parents for 20 good years. Thank you.
Society, and we really did have bialys, although we were in there for 2 hours. If you believe that, you'll believe the Tooth Fairy.
Sit down, John. We'll get your turn later. That's right, as we're going along here. We'd like to introduce a lady right now who is known to speak for hours when you just give her an opportunity. But she also can answer the question that's been burning in our minds for the last couple of months. I'd like to know, Camille, what is Camille doing in the high school physical education office? Or why did she leave Lindenauer and Goldwasser for Goldberg? We hope we get some information at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, the current president of the Council of PTAs for one more night, Camille Basio.
Good evening. My lips are sealed to that. I don't reveal anything. I just am standing here ad-libbing, as I usually do. I love microphones, as Al Lauria can tell you. Just to say goodbye to John, but I have his home phone number, so he will be hearing from me. There's a very special man in my life that loves this man, and I will have to keep in touch because I have to keep supplying this man with some homemade wine. I have 4 children that went through this system, and because of John Crowley, they went through it. Better people. They love him, and they always have a little part of him in their hearts. I have to say, my little one is moving up to middle school, and John is leaving, so I really didn't have to break in a new principal. Worked out pretty good, huh, John? On behalf of the Center Street people, the Herricks District, I want to say good luck in your retirement. We will miss you terribly. I will miss you terribly. And from my father, salute et ciendam.
Thank you, Camille. For those of you who have answers to our question, just please drop them in the slot outside. We'll read all those answers later tonight. You know, someone out there has to shoulder the responsibility for hiring John Crowley. And who better to blame than the president of the 1968-69 Herrick Board of Education? He's currently president of the BOCES Board of Directors, and I'd like to introduce George Farber.
It's about 20 years now since I presided at the board meeting at which John was appointed as principal of the Center Street School. And I must confess that for 20 years, I have been terribly troubled by an unending sense of guilt. Thank goodness my guilt-ridden conscience will finally be relieved in a few days when John's retirement takes effect. I left the board about 2 years after his appointment, but there was one incident that I vividly recall that you might like to hear about. Shortly after John assumed his principalship role, he decided he would like to have lunch in the school cafeteria with some of the staff members. They were serving chicken that day, and as would naturally be expected, John asked the cafeteria lady for a second piece of chicken. She turned him down, much to his surprise, and he said to her, "You don't seem to understand. I'm the principal of the school." "Mr. Crowley," was her response, "you don't seem to understand. I'm the lady in charge of the chicken." Ever since John's retirement was announced, real estate values in Herricks have skyrocketed. I cannot attribute the dramatic increases in these property values to John's retirement, but it sure is coincidental. So much for the ribbing, and now for my real perceptions. John, you added much to the enrichment of the lives of thousands of Herrick's children since you came here. I consider it a personal privilege to have known you and to have participated in your appointment. I wish you and your family many years of good health happiness, and contentment. Thank you.
Camille's not here either. We have to wait 30 seconds. Which picture? We have a gentleman with us this evening who for many years, about 20 to be exact, resided in the basement of the administration building. We all wondered what he was doing down there with his calculator and computers. I know when Ira asked him one time, Haskell, how come the budget is 14%? Haskell said, don't ask. But he's going to do something tonight for John. We'd like to welcome Haskell Page to the microphone.
That was the lower level, not the basement. The last thing Betty said to me, my wife Betty, this afternoon before we were leaving, and she said, don't forget, this is John and Sarah's retirement, not yours. So, in that spirit, I would like to just mention, John, what retirement is like. I'm not going to zing you, believe me, because I was, oh, by the way, I was there in '68. I was on the initial screening committee. Well, you didn't know that. I was there when the board made the vote. I don't remember that picture. So either we've hired the wrong guy, or the picture's wrong. There's something wrong. And we really should check it out. I don't know if his name, you know, is what it is or what it isn't. Anyway, John, retirement is kind of like being on vacation and calling in sick. It's a great feeling, but a little nervous. But more important, it's like the HTA feels about sick leave. You know, it's always, the pay always comes in. It's unlimited sick leave. That's what it is. Unlimited sick leave. The pay comes in every month, the last day of the month, and if the last day of the month falls on a Saturday or Sunday, it comes the day before. The only problem is it's usually about half of what you usually get. But in your case, we know between the police department, which you transferred that over in '68, and the and Harris 20 years, you're probably, you know, in the 75 to 80% bracket, you know, that. You're not even going to like me like it is going to be unlimited sick leave.
Haskell's next financial aid seminar will be given on Monday, June 27th. The next speaker built the physical education department during his 39 years in Herrick's. He also wanted to build the domed Doc Lovin Stadium on the high school field. He barely got tennis courts. He's now the renowned sailor, an adjunct at 3 universities. Please welcome Harold Lovin.
John, I don't even know what I'm doing, guys. We went to your retirement party last week. Weren't we all there? Anyway, certainly I didn't want to speak tonight. Because if you can't, John, if you can't say anything nice, you don't say anything. But when I heard about the discount that the speakers are getting, incidentally, Sarah says she's only going sailing if I go along. But John is a great opportunist, as you all know, and he's always taught me that. be an opportunist, take advantage of everything that comes along. In fact, I see he's dressed tonight in his uniform. Before the party tonight, he was picking up a few bucks as the maitre d' in that early bar mitzvah that went on. Yeah, and I remember when Norman Hawili came to the district, and you were planning to attend that first meeting with him, and you were going to wear a long robe, flowing robes, and ride in on a camel. Some of the old timers remember. If it wasn't Sarah refusing to wear that veil or walk behind you, you would have made an ass of yourself. I was also on that screening committee. And remember, we all voted no. So, George Faber, the burden rests with you and the rest of the board members. But you were an opportunist, you still are, I can see that. When Ira Singer came to the district, I remember the first 3 openings you had on your staff. You recommended Jacques Dubois. I remember. I also remember the great lunches we have. One of our members isn't here, but it's typical of Bernie Kinberg. Bernie Kinberg was originally restricted from using chemicals when he blew up the Herrick's Pond, if you remember. And he's probably at the Roslyn Cafe now. And then Don Erger, who came to our district, he had got his doctorate at St. John's, and he went to England, and he came in with his great cockamamie idea. Tear down the walls between classrooms. Remember that? They're open classrooms. You know, I envisioned, if this followed its logical conclusion, we would have had a school with 2 large gymnasiums. I would be working in one side, and all the teachers and all the kids would be in the other one. Remember Don Erger, who wrote that book, Innovation Without Change? Remember that one? Well, those lunches were really there. And we always talked about education, how we were going to improve the district. And John ate lunch all the time, listening carefully. Gene Goldwasser was taking notes like crazy. Yeah. Remember, John? Good days. Good days. Anyway, John, I don't know anybody who has contributed more to the Herrick School District and the community by doing less. We love you, and we wish you well. You know, Harold was retired 5 years ago. I don't think he's ever left us. You know, I called Ira the other day, and I asked him how Vinny was doing. And he said, Vinny? Vinny who? Well, I've had to remind him about Vinny LaSalle, a former president of the school board, member of the school board for 12 years. Vinny LaSalle.
Get a few corrections in order. George feels guilt for hiring him 20 years ago. I feel penance for granting tenure. Gene, thanks for that introduction. It's a hell of a lot better than one I got recently that said, now we'll hear the latest dope from Bosie's. Years ago, my 4 daughters came home to tell me that they were following John down a hallway in Center Street one day. He was talking to Gene, and he said, you know, Gene, it's a tough job running Center Street. I wonder who's doing it. When I first ran for the board 1969. I served 15 years since then, but I remember going into John, he was in the district a year, and I said, John, what advice can you give me? I'm thinking of running for the board. Went into his office, he closed the door, made sure nobody was behind listening, pulled the shades and said, Vinny, always be sincere. Even if you don't mean it. Many in central office and the board felt that John did the work of two men, Laurel and Hardy. Many of us who know John know him as the quintessence of tact and gentility. He goes back to his Irish upbringing. But he was known to be a steamroller approach in many events. And one day, Ira Singer visited him over at Center Street to tell him that a telegram had come in bearing the bad news that one of his teachers' grandmother had passed away, and that he would have to go and tell her about it. John, ever alert, right, went into the main office, grabbed the microphone off the... Stepped back, took a deep breath, and said, O'Malley, your grandmother just died. Well, I tell you, Ira was taken aback by that. And he didn't like the crude, insensitive way that John did it. So he sent him away to a Dale Carnegie course for 6 weeks to get something in tact and personnel relations. And sure enough, 6 weeks later, John came back with his little certificate in hand. And just at about that time, another telegram came in that Ira was delivering at Center Street about the death of another teacher's grandmother. So John said, I'll take care of this, sir. Don't worry. I've just come back from Carnegie. So we went back into the office, pulled the microphone off the hook, bellowed into it, every classroom, and said, now hear this. All teachers with grandmothers take one step down to the office. Not so fast, Lopez. Behind every successful man, there is usually an astonished mother-in-law. And Sarah's mother was known to go around in a state of perpetual surprise about John. John is really a guy with both feet on the ground. Indeed. He still hasn't figured how to put his pants on without Sarah helping him. You do know that John loves to sing, if you've heard him with his mellifluous tones. Well, in college, he had a few friends, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And they formed a very popular singing group known as the New Testament. And their favorite song was, If They Asked Me, I Could Write a Book. Half the people in the room won't understand that. That's the New Testament. Back to the Bible. In biblical days, it was a miracle when an ass spoke. When you listen to John, you cannot help but realize how things have changed. John and Sarah have a great relationship. I was with them once when John dropped a penny into one of these scales that gives you the weight and also tells your fortune. Okay, when the card dropped down, Sarah bent over and picked it up and read it. She said, you're a born leader, intelligent, witty, charming, and highly attractive to the opposite sex. Then she turned the card over and said, it has your weight wrong too, John. Many people have said that John and Sarah are a wonderful couple, except for him. And anyone who spent any time with Sarah and John know that Sarah backs him all the way, usually into a corner. I'm getting the high sign from John right now, loosely interpreted. It says, what's your butler salad? And stop trying to make a fool of me. Ladies and gentlemen, the Creator beat me to it. Once I went fishing with John. We rented all the equipment we would need. The reels, the rods, the wading boots, the boat, and even a cabin up in Maine, and we drove 8 hours going up there. On day 1, we didn't catch a thing. On day 2, same thing. Day 3, nothing. Finally, on the last day, I caught myself a 7-pound fish. Driving back to New York, tired and depressed. I said, John, do you realize this goddamn fish cost us $1,500? And John said, ever quick, witty, bright, cutting edge, he said, wow, it's a good thing we didn't catch any more fish. Did you ever hear the one-armed fisherman who caught a fish this big? Okay, recently, John has expressed some of his fears about approaching retirement. And he went to a church, knelt down and prayed out loud, "Oh Lord, make me successful in retirement, and please make me humble." Sarah, kneeling beside him, chimed in and said, "Lord, you make him successful, I'll make him humble." In a way, John's feelings about leaving us at Center Street in Herrick's are similar to those of a wildcat who has been making love to a snake. He's saying to himself, I've enjoyed about as much of this as I can endure. John's retirement reminds me of the story of the elderly spinster who was very fond of mink coats and went to a mink farm. She took a tour of the farm and was very solicitous toward her. And he was very gracious in showing her around. And she commented to him, she says, "How often do you skin them?" And the farmer looked at her and says, "Just once, madam. It makes them very nervous." Well, it makes us nervous to lose the likes of John, an administrator of such high quality and character. He will be difficult to replace. I guess what we're trying to say here tonight, John, is for as long as we've known him, or you, John, you've been a dynamic, sensitive, caring, thoughtful, and humane person. I'd like to thank John on behalf of all of us who have known you, or him, for his decision to leave Herrick's. Because by taking this action, you have significantly raised the average intelligence of the principals within the Herrick School District. John, I wish you and Sarah the very best of health, many years to enjoy them both. Thank you and God.
Thank you, Vinny. You know, there was one among us several years ago who I thought was a seemingly intelligent individual. You all know that John Crowley is a notorious practical joker. Well, this individual was the butt of John Crowley's jokes more than anyone else. Who else, I ask you, would have rid Searingtown School of rabbits after being informed by the, in quotes, health department of the dread raviola scare? Who else thought it was, who else hung up? I gotta get my notes here. Who else hung up on a parent calling from Argentina because he thought it was John Crowley? When she called back again, he said, "Oh, excuse me." And who else? Who else would confuse John Crowley with Rabbi Fenster? Who, you ask? None other than Dr. Donnie himself. Please welcome Don Erga.
Sure, it's the right thing to get up here and make fun of a poor, fat old guy who's going to retire. I wouldn't do anything like that. It's not fair and it's not nice. And some of the people who've been up here, I'm really surprised because you told half-truths, but I'm going to tell you the whole story. First, I'd like to thank Gene and whoever else helped me make this wonderful party. But I think the turnout is terrific. And the idea of saying in the advertisements, things that were sent to me in Florida, and I don't know to how many others, come and meet Mike Tyson. That was a good idea. That got a lot of people to come out here tonight, and we'd like to welcome Mike Tyson and also Bertie Kimberg, whoever gets here first. John Crowley is a complex character, and some of the things that came out tonight give you some insight, but not much. John and I came into the district about the same time, and we worked together for 3 different chief school offices. The first one was Dr. Norman Kawili. We came as innovators. This is why we were hired. This is why the nationwide search went on, and we came here as innovators, and we joined Ruth Rippon, who was a marvelous and splendid lady. Now, Dr. Willie, you board members think you knew him. You didn't know him the way we did. Dr. Willie was an ex-Marine officer, and he ran this district the way it should have been run, as he saw it. We always knew where we were, mostly in trouble. But Dr. Willie had a lot of things. He had us line up in uniform every morning, and he made an inspection. Now, John, it is not really known. John is a sincerely, of the three of us, John was a legitimate war hero. He was a fighter pilot in the Pacific. John shot down 8 planes. 2 of them were Japanese. But Dr. Willie would have us line up, and I'd say the truth, Ruth Rippon and I ran bad second and third. I had bad posture and thick glasses, and I didn't shape up much. Ruth Rippon insisted on wearing British khakis and these big shoes, but John was crisp. John looked great, and he and Dr. Willie hit it off very well. However, Dr. Willie left eventually, and the 3 of us went on, and there were some changes made, and Dr. Ira Singer came on board as chief school officer, and a lot of changes occurred very quickly. And John and I hung up our uniforms, put on our tutus, and went along with the whole thing. John had a magnificent, Ira gave John one of the most critical jobs. John was in charge of keeping children from running away from Madison Square Garden. And many's the time you would see John with his butterfly net running down 33rd Street, chasing some poor little 4th grader who wanted to go home. And you know, if you've been to Manhattan lately, hardly anyone noticed. But things were very good. And by the way, John, I'd like you to hear this. I was talking to Ira just now, and he rates this party as eminently satisfactory. Which, for those of you who do not understand the whole concept of reward through performance, sometimes called merit pay, sometimes called a lot of dirty things, which I can't say here, but what this means, rating this party as eminently satisfactory, it means that John has to give back $12,000 to the district and 40% of his gifts. We still have a way to go tonight. John was really always a good friend to me. And we went on, and after the British infant school reached its peak and began to die off, I said, why hang around? I mean, I better go. Well, I can. And I retired. But John said, no way. I am an innovator. I am a person who is here for change, and I want my rightful terminal pay. And John has been negotiating for 6 years now with Lee Pierce, who was Ira Singer's successor. And I really have to say a word about Lee Pierce, because not much was said about him tonight. Not much is ever said about him. But Lee Pierce has some of the attributes. He's a kind, personable, sensitive man who cares about everybody, who thinks of the other guy, who is aware of the needs of teachers and administrators alike. Now, none of these attributes mean a damn if you're a chief school officer. And it's not going to help him much either, but I'm not worried about him because I understand that he, like John, is negotiating for other ways of expressing themselves and other ways of ensuring themselves financial gain. And I know that Lee is on his way to doubling his currently generous salary. He's negotiating to be the golf starter over at Eisenhower Park, which, as you know, is a very good job, much better than a chief school officer job. John himself, don't worry about John, he is not going to go back and just sail his boat. He's going to sit back and do some of the things that he and Haskell have worked out. Very few of you know that he and Haskell have been in business for a long time. They got into food, the preparation and shipping of food. You know, Haskell is from North Carolina, and John knows chickens. So he and Haskell got together. They made a few errors. They made their first shipment of Smithfield hams to Israel. And the kosher chickens went to Lebanon. But there's still some hope for them, and I think there will be for John, too. It's a lot of fun to come here and see some of the people I haven't seen for some time. And I have to tell you this. You are going to miss John Crowley. I have missed him for 6 years. You are going to, this guy is in truth He's the Sultan of SWAT, of educational process. He is the John Ferrucci or Dom DeLuise of extended lunchtimes. He is the Orson Welles of innovation without change. And I love him, and you love him, and we make some fun, and we have some jokes. But John, Godspeed, and it's a delight to be here. Thank you.
You've been a tough act to follow, Dr. But now I understand, John, why you never stayed in for lunch. It all has to do with that lady and the chicken, right? The other day I called... Right? I really don't want to say this. The other day I called Vinny at Bosie's and I asked, Vinny, where's Ira? And Vinny said, who? And I said, Ira? And he said, Ira? Dr. Ira Singer.
Thank you, Nancy. I would like to say goodbye to a man who gave the term duty-free lunch new meaning. When I would ask John, where did you have lunch yesterday? He'd answer Greenwich, Connecticut. And he meant it. He and his colleagues, I thought they were at the Roslyn Cafe, but no. They were tracking down one mysterious Phantom of the Opera, Bernie Kinberg, in Greenwich, Connecticut. But they got there, ate, and back in an hour. Can you believe that? When the board used to ask me, what are the 3 most expensive programs in Harris? Where have we put most of our money? I would say each time, special education, vocational education, and John Crowley's lunch. Mikhail Jacques Crowley crashed in 1929. He became somewhat expert. He could not bourrée. He could not arabesque. He invented a new step called the squat. And when John played very minor league ball as a catcher, I understand the first pas de deux was done with Whitey Ford. At least that's what was reported by Jerry Eskenazi in the New York Times. He left ballet after a particularly notorious career when people began to stone him. And Phil Petrozello, who was at one of these performances, offered John a job as principal at Center Street. John thought he said principal dancer at City Center, and so he grabbed the job. But of course, John, when Jacques came to town, paled by comparison. He did a trio with, a quartet rather, with Jean, Nancy, and myself. And we were tripping over one another because the unchallenged star of that quartet was one John Crowley. John is a kind of a Machiavellian character. I recall another retirement when John set this up. One Haskell Page was retiring, and at the end of Haskell's party, in a very solemn, serious way, people said, there was time for a gift, you see. People were beginning to hint that this was quite a gift, and Haskell was never one to look the other way when money was dangled before his eyebrows, those furry brows of his. And so when it came time to present him the gift, John said, and now Haskell, we have the gift for you, an IRA. And John opened the package, and it was a picture of me. I don't think Haskell ever forgave me, but blame it on John. As far as I'm concerned, John, his sense of humor kept me going on some very tough days. I would join him at that duty-free lunch more often, I suppose, than I should have. But if I needed a lift, if I needed to be reminded that humor was still the major component of what we're all about, I sat with John. He made the days enjoyable when I could spend time with him. He has the gift that many people do not have, going along with problems and somehow finding a way to laugh at them, to bring humor to them, and at every moment be the very kind of humane man many of us like to see in education. Children loved him, the parents loved him, and I loved him. Thank you, and good luck.